Good evening, everybody. It's Bobby Clayton here, and just getting started. Let me just pull this up and kind of go through where I'm at. This is day number 19. And, of 365 of the greatest book ever written. I'm just going to share this in one spot here. And I'll start here. Thank you for your patience. And let me see here. It's been an extremely long day. I hope everybody else has had a wonderful day. Okay. Let's see, day 19. Day 19 of 365. Okay. So we're still talking about Joseph and what happened with him in Egypt. And so let me see here. Let me just get this going here. It's been an extremely long day. I know I did the talk with Yovan, and then I've been kind of busy all day with some various talking of sorts, and it's been just a long day. I'll talk about it, I guess, once I'm logged in here. Okay, so let's go to the Bible here, and going to, oops. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, Joseph in Potiphar's house. So when Joseph was taken to Egypt, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. And he was so impressed with everything that Joseph did that he put him in charge of his entire house. Now, what's interesting about this story, and I kind of touched on it yesterday, and how it kind of ends, is Potiphar was extremely impressed and let him put him in charge of everything because of his good faith with God. As a result, Potiphar had a lot of good things happen to him for putting Joseph in charge. And sure enough, the trust that was instilled in Joseph was put to the test when Potiphar's wife wanted to have Joseph cheat and participate in cheating or adultery with Joseph, even though that wasn't in obviously in Potiphar's best interest nor Joseph's. His wife ends up lying about the whole situation, trying to blame Joseph for attempting to, I guess, rape her, even though she was the one that was trying to seduce him. He ends up going to jail. So, what's the takeaway on this story? I guess the takeaway is, obviously, even if you do the right thing, they're living in this world that sometimes evil forces or bad people might try to do something that puts you into a horrible situation. It's almost as though if Joseph would have just cheated, he probably wouldn't have gotten arrested. And then, at the same time, he didn't cheat and he does get arrested, and he has to see through, he has to see through this horrible situation where he did not deserve the outcome for doing the right thing. If you look at it in relationship to the world we live in right now, it's pretty interesting because we're seeing that people that are more religious in the U.S., and not just the U.S. but worldwide, are being persecuted. So you have all this persecution going on for people that are living their faith, even though people's religious freedom is protected under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, along with 4 other things. It's being put to the test. The religious leaders in the United States, as well as around the world, have been co-opted by various governments, and their concern about losing their tax deferred status, and in many cases is not helped them step up and do the right thing on behalf of everybody that follows their church. And anyways, I think this story kind of hits home on that, and it even though it tested Joseph's faith in God and his faith in doing the right thing, he still did the right thing because it's the right thing. So you could definitely say he has high character, and God as such continued to hold favor for Joseph. Okay. So on 40, while he's in prison, he runs across two people that were recently jailed by the Pharaoh. One was the baker, and then the other one was the I think the cup holder or cup bearer. So they're both not sure what's going to happen to them, and so they're having these dreams. The cupbearer ends up sharing his dream with Joseph, and Joseph says, "I can't interpret dreams, but God can interpret them for you, and using me as a vessel." So sure enough, the cupbearer goes through, says 3 days. He has three vines, three vines representing 3 days, I guess, into the future. He squeezes the grapes into the cup, and sure enough, what happens is the cupbearer is going to be restored to his former position of serving the Pharaoh. So the cupbearer is happy to find out that this is a good thing. He's not going to be in prison too much longer, etc. And Joseph simply says, "Please, remember me." The baker, on the other hand, the cupcake maker or baker, he has 3 dreams of loaves of bread that are eaten up by birds. Once again, 3, maybe the Father, Son, Holy Spirit in each situation. But in the case of the baker, it's not so good. He's not going to make it through. He's going to be executed. So even though he was excited to tell Joseph, because Joseph gave good advice to the cupbearer, his advice was not so good. So sure enough, both these stories come to pass, and but even though they came to pass, the cupbearer forgot to mention it to the Pharaoh, even though he was restored. So this is in the movie, like the show Joseph in Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. They kind of set this whole scene to music. It's pretty cool. But in terms of the Pharaoh, he's supposedly Elvis. So they set his part to Elvis Presley, and he sings out his part, and everybody in this whole story sings out their part. They do a phenomenal job. Very creative that somebody came up with this story. Oh boy. Excuse me. Came up with the story. And so, what do the stories mean that the cupbearer and the baker, one gets to live and one gets to die, right? And it's an interesting situation, because if you notice, cupbearer is wine, right? The blood of Christ. And if when you go to communion in the Roman Catholic Church, right, the blood of Christ, and then the bread of life, right? So you got the situation where you have the blood and you got the body of Christ. In both situations, the blood of Christ is when you drink and eat the body and blood of Christ, you through the transformation process, right, in Catholicism, it keeps your soul going, that it's going to live on forever. But one represents life and the other represents death. And just as we go through this life, there's a part of our body, so to speak, that always dies, and that we continue to transform ourselves through this process that I've kind of talked about repeatedly over the past, 17, 18 days, and where your body rebuilds itself. So in some respects, your body is, in fact, constantly dying and constantly being rebuilt. And then your blood continues to flow through that entire transformation. And so I can't help but think that the body and blood of Christ is a metaphor. It's, it's, I think it's figurative, because with God anything is possible. I mean, it's literal because with God everything's possible, but it's also figurative in that it describes us, our being, and so forth. And so, it's something to think about. I've never talked to a priest about it, but when I think of the story, that's what I think of. I think about the Eucharist and the blood of Christ, being the wine during the ceremony and Christianity, and at least in Roman Catholicism. I'm not sure if Protestants have the same belief, but I do think that that's how the things are connected, and that your blood, even as your body kind of sheds itself and creates a new body, your spirit is housed in a new body that's constantly dying and replacing itself. The one thing that kind of weaves all that together is your blood. Anyways, so that's my interpretation. Okay, 2 years later, the Pharaoh dreams all this. He dreams about his own dream, and basically the bank of the Nile. He has 7 fat, healthy cows grazing on marsh grass. Then 7 more cows behind them, scrawny and thin. And so it goes through that process of feast and famine. You got the plump cows, and then the ones that are pretty much malnutrition. And so then next thing you know, 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, and then 7 more that are shriveled and withered. And so obviously the Pharaoh was extremely distraught, didn't know what to do. Then the king's cupbearer spoke and said, I met somebody, in prison. I forgot to mention it, but his 2 interpretations of dreams ended up coming true. And so Pharaoh called on Joseph to come and explain the dreams to him. And he said, it's beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. And so, I've talked about it on and off maybe the past couple months, online a little bit. I kind of hint at it here and there, but I do have my own version, I guess, or my own connection with God, where I do have the dreams. Some of the dreams come to me without me asking. Some of them come to me because I do ask. And so, and then there are some dreams that are just mine. So I do know the difference when I'm dreaming. That's my thoughts as to, I guess, how I'm interpreting the world. Sometimes I'm getting a message, and usually if I get a message, it happens in a very similar hour in the middle of the night. There's a very distinct ringing or noise or sound, however you want to call it, that flows into my mind, and it does get triggered by my ears. No, I'm not hallucinating, folks. It may seem like it, but it's extremely obvious. And sometimes I wonder, why do I see these things? And just like anybody else would imagine, at first, it does feel as though, when it first would happen to me years ago, maybe decades ago, I did kind of think I was hallucinating. But, obviously I'm not using any drugs. I'm not doing anything that would suggest that I should be hallucinating. So, I'm just letting you know that somehow we can tap into this. And part of it, I think, comes from prayer. I've done my fair share of prayer without any expectations of what I should get, just praying for good things to happen, for justice to be seen in the world. But I can think about that. I think about that going back for as far as I can remember. So it's I don't know if that's what opens up the channel. If I had to guess, I think it does. If you're sincere and genuine, I think God does know if you are praying, expecting nothing to happen for yourself. then he might be more likely to open up the channel. And then when you do pray and you want to have something answered, um, you know, you've kind of already shown that, you've kind of showed a little bit of your character and what makes you tick, even though God already knows everything about you. That's the irony. But it's that you've actually lived it and shown it is why God, I think, starts to, um, you know, give you answers that you seek. And so if you've never done it before, I highly recommend that you give it a shot. I think that the best way to consider doing it, and I've said this plenty of times, I've told my kids the same thing, when you go to bed, clear out your mind, get everything out. Don't think about the day, don't think about tomorrow, don't think about anything going on. So it's kind of reminds me of what I've learned about Buddhism, but it also applies to Christianity. So there's some principles that are a cross current as far as what I can gather between the two approaches. And I do think that there's some valuable lessons that have been passed on through different religions. And somebody gave me a good analogy. Maybe it was in here, or maybe it was outside of here. Each religion, has a different. They have their different messengers within that religion that are still doing God's work for the one true religion. And so, you guessed it. I happen to believe the true religion is the church that Christ set up, that he gave Peter the keys to, which is the Roman Catholic Church. And so not everybody has to agree with me, and that's fine. Maybe your religion is there for a purpose that ties into the core branch of Christianity, which is the Roman Catholic Church, which is the core trunk of Vineyard. If you think of it that way, like a set of grapes, there's a core trunk that all the other branches are connected to. And I think that would be the Roman Catholic Church. Now, granted, this doesn't bode well with people that want to be independent and interpret their own version of the Bible. Even though this interpretation that I'm sharing with you, these are thoughts that I think and feel. I am not a theologian. I think that it would be something that would be extremely fascinating to study over time and get better understanding and study some of the more idiosyncratic items about the interpretation of these stories that have been backed up, maybe through dreams, maybe through experience or other signs that people have witnessed over centuries. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Roman Catholic Church kept some of the records of all that information. And maybe this is part of the secret of how they kind of pass through the knowledge to the next generation of religious leaders. I have no idea how they do it. Just telling you that if I was going to pass down information over the next 500 to 1,000 years, I would definitely look to create a core set of this knowledge that was consistent, was most most closely resembled truth and reality of the original message. And I would also highlight evidence or information that was attempted to be used to discredit the core proposition, so that people can study not just what is proving out to be the true message, but all the various attempts to try to discredit the message. Because in my mind, this is what this is what the connection to God is really all about. You have faith, and you should have blind faith, but then, we're human beings. We also want to confirm that we have that faith and it's right. And so, it's nice to be tested. But I do think that the Bible, even for people that don't necessarily believe in religion, if they read it and they learn the lessons, it gets harder and harder for people that read it and fully understand what's being said to believe that it was a fluke, or it was just a hodgepodge of stories that were put together in one book that all just seem to jive and get threaded together the way that they have. And so it's just something to think about, folks. Okay, so now we're on to Matthew 12. And Jesus was speaking to the crowd. His mother and brothers stood outside asking um, to speak to him. Someone told Jesus, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside and they want to speak with you." Jesus asked, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Then he pointed to his disciples and said, "Look, these are my mothers and brothers. Anyone who does the will of the Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." So once again, um, you know, think about the people that you meet in faith over time. Um, do you feel as though, um, do you feel that the people that are helping you better understand uh, the word of the Lord and the stories of the Bible, I mean, do you view them as family? That's a good question, right? And so, I do think that uh, if you live by the example of Christ, people that try to bring you peace and strengthen your soul are true siblings of sorts and true parents of sorts. And this goes back to what I mentioned, I think yesterday, the day before, about honor thy father and thy mother. That how would we live our lives if the people that we spoke with, if we treated them as our mother or as our father with the same type of respect when we disagree with them, and what would be the way we approach it. And so it's easier to treat people with respect. It's just the way it is. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's easier to treat people with respect that share your value and your belief system. And that's hard for some people to come to grips with, because there's this delusion at times that people should try to respect everybody nowadays, because of the narrative by the lunatic left that everybody's way of thinking is right. And so we have to just learn to accept everybody's way of thinking. However, if you have a way of thinking that disagrees with our narrative, you're wrong and you should be ostracized. So it's an ironic thing. They try to preach one thing but do the other, as long as it meets their needs. So there's a complete there's a very horrific sort of I guess deception is the word, that takes place with the lunatic left. Okay, later that day, okay, so this is a lot more here. Listen, a farmer went out to plant some seeds and he scattered them across the field. Some seeds fell on the footpath and birds came and ate them. Other seeds fell on the shallow soil with underlying rock. The seeds sprouted quickly because the soil was shallow, but the plants wilted under the hot sun because they didn't have deep roots. Others fell among the thorns and grew up and choked the tender plants. Still others fell on fertile soil, and they produced a crop that was 30, 60, and even 100 times as much as had been planted. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. His disciples asked him, "Why do you see parables when you talk to the people? Why do you use parables?" And so he replied, "You are permitted to understand the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but others are not. To those who listen to my teaching, more understanding will be given, and they will have the abundance of knowledge. But those who are not listening, even what little understanding they have will be taken away from them. That is why I use these parables." And so, with regards to the parables, a lot of the parables, and even like the whole concept about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I know there's a lot of people that get all worked up about this. Like, you're saying God is a male, God is, king, what about women? What about king, queens and all this? And, whether it be masculine energy or feminine energy, the Bible is the Bible. Some people view it as literal, some view it as figurative. I happen to have faith that the story, the way it's described is made to help us understand. But if God is all knowing, all powerful, an energy that ties into everything, then it doesn't really matter what the example is. If it makes you feel better, use a queen, use a daughter instead of queen and daughter. But it's the more important thing to consider and think about with these stories is what do the figures represent with regards to the historical context of the society of the time. And so that's what's more important, because these parables tie into the power structures of how society was organized to benefit the most people that were alive at that time. And so, I don't get too caught up on the stories. And I do try to think of it as the standpoint that what if this literally happened in the world? And what if it happened figuratively? And what if it was both? And I don't think there's any harm in thinking of it all three ways. You believe it happened literally, what does it look like? Figuratively, this is what it looks like. And then maybe all three, there you go. And so anyways, that's my take on why the parables are used. For they look, but they don't really see. They hear, but they don't really listen or understand. This fulfills the prophecy of Isaiah that says, when you hear what I say, you will not understand. When you see what I do, you will not comprehend. For the hearts of these people are hardened, and their ears cannot hear, and they have closed their eyes, so their eyes cannot see, and their ears cannot hear, and their hearts cannot understand. And they cannot turn to me and let them heal them. But blessed are your eyes because they see, and their ears because they hear. I tell you the truth, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, and they didn't see. And they longed to hear what you hear, but they didn't hear it. Now listen to the explanation of the parable about the farmer planting seeds. Okay, so what's interesting about this is to think about our life in the country right now and then globally. There was decades that have gone by, and essentially, as these decades have gone by, a lot of us didn't hear and we didn't see what was happening. And I think how this relates to us in the world that we're living in now, a lot of us just chose not to see and hear, and for a lot of reasons. Part of it is we're just distracted with other type of vices, other type of things that we're doing wrong in our lives. It's a tough pill to swallow, because if you're paying attention, in a lot of aspects of life, maybe you would see that your child was struggling. But if you're partaking in vices, maybe you can't see that. So if your judgment's cloudy because you drink too much alcohol, or if you're too exhausted and you're doing things that wear your body down and you don't give your body proper rest, that can impact your judgment. So there's different things in everyday life that we could be doing that cause us to lose some of the full functionality of our senses, to live a better life, so to speak, and a more righteous and just life for the circumstances that we're given. So, that's my take on it. So, now listen to the explanation of the parable about the farmer. So with this, thinking about this, hearing and seeing, think of it this way, like, I guess this is what, Jesus says next. The seed that fell on the footpath represents those who hear the message about the kingdom and don't understand it. Then the evil one comes and snatches away the seed that was planted in their hearts. The seed on the rocky soil represents those who hear the message and immediately receive it with joy. But since they don't have deep roots, they don't last long. They fall away as soon as they have problems or are persecuted for believing in God. The seed that fell among the thorns represents those who hear God's words, but all too quickly the message is crowded out by the worries of this life and the lure of wealth, and no fruit is produced. The seed that fell on good soil represents those who truly hear and understand God's words and produce a harvest of 30, 60, even 100 times what they had planted. And, I really do believe that, that this is how life turns out. If you, and this is, I happen to be traveling, as I mentioned. I don't really want to talk about where I'm at. Maybe I'll talk about it when I get back. But when I'm traveling, I don't like to discuss where I'm at. It's just a habit of mine. And frankly, if it wasn't for me being late yesterday, then probably would have never told anybody I was traveling. But and until after the fact, and I can talk about why later. But so basically, thinking of this passage of what's being said, um, you know, I'm in an area of the country where people, a lot of very young people, like a lot of young people, I'm saying people in their 20s and 30s, younger than me. How's that? So a lot of people in their 20s and 30s are walking around with the mask on, like everywhere. And here I am, by myself, and me and my family were walking around. I don't have a mask on outside. I am not wearing a mask on outside. But here's all these people walking around in fear, and they're fearful of getting sick. And because they don't have a strong root system into their faith and their Christian faith, that, what, the world is a dangerous place. We can all get sick. We get the wrong cut, our body can't process it properly, we can get a staph infection. That's just the way it is. So you need to take care of your body, take care of your spirit, and then deal with anything that is thrown at you, any hardship that hits your spirit, any hardship that hits your body, but plan for it. So when you're young and you should have a strong immune system, and these people look pretty young and healthy, and they're that afraid that they need to wear a mask to feel confident and comfortable outside and conceal their identity and live in this pathetic fear. I call it pathetic because when you start to live that scared, you go through this life being that scared. I'm not sure that's a life worth living for me. And I think that people that are more religious probably have more faith in what happens afterwards. And right or wrong, I'm not saying it's a right or wrong decision. Maybe it's a foolish decision. Maybe I'm being foolish by what I think and how I feel about the situation. But I'm not going to live in fear of the environment and the earth that the God has blessed us with because of other people around me suggesting I should be that fearful. I make my own decisions based on the data, and I'll live with the decisions based on the data. And I do think that you can tilt the odds in your favor by using precaution, by doing the right things, washing your hands. There's other things you can do by using good old-fashioned common sense. But this idea that people think that a mask or some type of restrictions they put on themselves is going to save them, so to speak, I think it's pretty sad, frankly. Walking around, it just feels like I was in the city of the Walking Dead. And what do they say? The one, if you're surrounded by a bunch of people that you think are lunatics, and you're the only one that doesn't, you're the only one that can, thinks that. Maybe you're the lunatic and everybody else is the normal one or something. I don't know. I'm butchering it up, but clearly I have no idea what they were thinking about me. They must have been like, this guy is just reckless and he's dangerous. I can't believe he's doing that to his children. It's pretty sad. I mean, it's kind of sad for both sides, right? Because I view it as sad for how they're living their life, and maybe they're viewing it as sad for the way I'm living my life. But what I do know is that I'm living my life freely and without fear, whereas they seem to be scared. And I'm not sure how long they're going to cower with that mask. Is that mask a permanent part of their face now for the foreseeable future? Because I got to tell you, I've been fine for over a year. I've literally worn a mask. I'm not joking when I say probably no more than 30 hours total in the past 365 days. And that's only because I'm stuck wearing one on an airplane. But I refuse to go any places where I have to use it and wear it the entire time. And I'm not in the best of shape. I'm not in the worst of shape. But all I can tell you is I drink a lot of water. I eat properly. And, I deal with the consequences, and I think, frankly, I've been just fine. So, that's me. But I do have good genes. Three of my grandparents lived into their 90s, one at about 85. So maybe that's why I have a little more confidence to just, trust my genes on this one. Okay, prayer to David. Let me see here. Oh Lord, hear my plea for justice. Listen to my cry for help. Pay attention to my prayer, for it comes from honest lips. Declare me innocent for those who do right. You have tested my thoughts and examined my heart in the night. You have scrutinized me and found nothing wrong. I am determined not to sin in what I say. I have followed your commandments, which keep me from following cruel and evil people. My steps stayed on your path. I have not wavered in following you. I'm praying to you because I know you will answer, O God. Bend down and listen as I pray. Show me your unfalling love in wonderful ways. But by your mighty power and rescue those who seek refuge from enemies. Guard me as you would guard your own eyes. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. Protect me from wicked people who attack me, from murderous enemies who surround me. They are without pity. Listen to their boasting. They track me down and surround me, watching for the chance to throw me to the ground. They are hungry lions, eager to tear me apart, these young lions hiding in the ambush. Arise, O Lord, stand against them and bring them to their knees. Rescue me from the wicked with your sword. By the power of your hand, O Lord, destroy those who look at this world for their reward, but satisfy the hunger of your treasured ones. May their children have plenty, leading an inheritance of their descendants. Because I am righteous, I will see you when I awake. I will see your face to face and be satisfied. And, that was Psalm 17. It's a lot to unpack, and it was long, but I just wanted to kind of say it. Once again, this is a prayer of David. I think we're once again living in a time where there's a lot of us who want to see, justice. We want to see freedom restored, because our freedoms are being trampled. As I mentioned, the First Amendment being trampled. Officials last year across our government, it should have been extremely obvious that, the Constitution, which is 2/3 of Americans, voted in blood for that Constitution over time. The Constitution and every amendment was 2/3 of all Americans, including people that had differing points of view with regards to political orientation or political party. Now, keep in mind, 2/3 of Americans believing in the Constitution should have been enough for every member of Congress to speak up on its behalf. But they didn't last year because they just worried about their own skin. And they didn't do the right thing, which was, in my opinion, the easier path. I think it's easier to do the right thing and take the consequences than take the easier path, do the wrong thing, and then regret it for the rest of eternity. That's just me. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I tell people all the time, and then maybe this is a good segue, because people have been asking me about this whole thing with Arizona. And part of what I'm doing is I've been reached out to about Arizona from a couple people, and I said I had a dream about it maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half now. Time kind of blends. And I said that I had a dream that I would help solve the situation in Arizona. I saw the math and how God showed it to me. And make a long story short, somebody called me up on Sunday about it. So I spoke with them for a half hour, 45 minutes on Sunday about Arizona. They're someone who might be in charge of the whole overview, the 2.1 million ballots. And they got to know me last year. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to mention who it is. I do know that I got to know them. They also happen to be very similar in their belief system as me. And, I spoke with them on Monday. I said, look, I dreamt about what you said. I dreamt about this before you called me. And, I'm not bashful about expressing what I see and what I feel and what I think is right. I don't have a problem with people not wanting to do anything with me after I do such a thing. It actually saves me a lot of time, is the way I look at it. If people don't want to listen to what I have to say after I explain how I came to that conclusion, that's on them. That's not on me. So anyways, to make a long story short, I said, look, I'm willing to do this work, but I have three conditions. Number one, whatever work I do, I do not want to get paid for any of the work with regards to voter fraud by this entity organization that raises the money to do this full audit. Okay, so that's step number one. But I said I want to reserve the right to let the people know what my findings are. And if people want to donate anything for my time, the American public, they can do it, but I don't expect that anybody's going to donate. But if they do, they do. Because I think people have a right to donate if they think it was worthwhile. If they don't think it's worthwhile, that's fine. I spent my time. Okay, that's number one. Number two is a lot of these ideas and visions that I've had, I do believe that God has weaved them into my thinking and process. So 333 happens to be one of my favorite numbers. It also happens to be a spiritual number. I said, if I'm going to do this, I need 3.33 cents per ballot to analyze all this and come up with a mathematical score for which ballots might be fraudulent. Okay. So it comes out to about $70,000. I said that money is the way I will pay tribute to God for the knowledge and wisdom that He's bestowed into me to help solve this problem. So, I need 3.33 cents to do the work. But I wanted to go to God, and the way I'll go to God is not through religious organizations, but rather into religious principle-based solutions that are teaching other fellow Americans how to fish. I'm tired of these problems just lingering. I want to find worthwhile religious or social organizations that are religiously based, that are helping solve problems in our humanity. None that I'm affiliated with or control, mind you. So any of the money, I do not want it, any ties to me. It has to be independent, and maybe I'll try to leverage it by getting other people to donate to that cause if this plays out this way. And then the third thing I said is I need 10 cents a ballot, so $210,000 to do this work. And that 10 cents a ballot is to go to the voter information or voter integrity project that I'm going to create. It is my charitable giving. I will not take a salary at all for any of my time and energy I spend on anything voter integrity related. I view it as a way of honoring not just God, but my parents who immigrated to this country. This country has been such a blessing to me, not just to me, but my family, I think to my siblings, even if they don't realize it to the extent that I do, my own children, all my family and friends. We really do live in the most special nation this earth has ever seen. And if I'm going to do the work, I said, then I want to be sure that I can give back for my efforts into an organization where I help construct it and create the data sets that the American public can use. And what I get out of it is I've gotten so much out of it already. I've gotten to meet incredible people. I've gotten to get and hear different ideas, share ideas with other people. So don't think just because people always associate getting paid money personally for some of the things you do as the only way you create value in this world or you obtain value. And nothing could be further from the truth. You get payment in terms of prayers. Sometimes I could feel people's prayers. I could pray back to people. You get payment through knowing that you're truly making a difference in this world for the short time that you're here. You get rewards by knowing that maybe the path that you chose sets other people in the world on a different trajectory that's more positive for all of us. I don't understand all the ways in which good things happen and accrue, and I don't need to, because I have faith that they do occur and that they will accrue to everybody who's involved. And from my standpoint, I think it's a blessing just to be involved in any way. So anyways, that was my message to him. He said, that's an interesting list of demands. And I kind of ended it because he's like, that's a lot of money. I don't know if they're going to want to spend that money. And some of the responses were kind of interesting that he gave me. And I said, well, a couple things I want to point out. Number one, I never need to have a single penny of that money ever touch my hands or my accounts. In fact, it would be much easier and simpler if the money just stayed in a separate account and this was a contract where the people that put up the money, they can write the checks. But I want it to be a contract that they have to write the damn checks. So I'm not doing the work unless I have a contract that they're going to spend the money. If they don't think I could do the work, it's a very simple problem. Don't ask me to do the work. So, and then I'm like, thank you for considering me, but I'm not doing the work. I'm not doing the work in the hopes that, okay, maybe they're going to do the right thing, because too often times in life I've seen too many people do the wrong thing. So you step up and you do the right thing. They don't do the right thing. They don't do the right thing in reciprocity. So I like to cover my bases. And I said, this can be put together in a way where if they're concerned that I'm going to try to be like other charitable foundations and groups in this country, that they figure out a way to steal the money, or creatively spend the money on themselves. I'm not interested in that. The money can be fully set up in a manner that everybody knows how it was spent. What all the expenses were, rent, labor, all those types of things. With the 210,000 and the charitable giving, exactly which charitable organizations receive the money, because I wouldn't do that blindly. I would look into who are the ones that I think are the best and deserve the money that was raised from this whole process. And the other response was, well, Bobby, these people that are asking that this work gets performed, they have their own organizations and voter integrity projects that they're working on. They have their own staff, et cetera. And, I said, well, if they do, which I think is great, then you should reach out to them to do this work for you. Because they're already donating the money and they have the staff that's supposedly part of their organization that can do this work. It's not a complicated problem. Have them do it. You should contact them. And, the response was, well, they can't do the work that you can do, Bobby. And then my response was very simple. I said, well, maybe I'm not asking for enough money. If I'm one of the only ones that could do the work to the level that it needs to be done, and I'm setting what my expectations are for what I'm going to do with any money that I receive, then maybe I'm not getting enough for these other causes that I believe in. A player in the NFL plays in one game on a Sunday, might get anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million. Now, granted, they train during the week and everything else. I get it. They have a skill set, but for 60 minutes, they're getting $1.5 million to $2 million. So nobody else has a problem with them, making that kind of money. I don't have a problem with them making that kind of money. People go play in a concert, in a band, and they make $500,000 to $1 million. So if I happen to have a skill, now keep in mind, I'm not going to play for 60 minutes. It's not 60 minutes of work, people. It's going to be a lot of work that I'm going to have to cram into my life, between my family and friends, between my children, between my job that does pay my bills for my family. And I'm willing to sacrifice a lot of my extra time. When you exclude sleeping every single week, you have about 3 work weeks a week of time. You have about 119 hours available for you to do something. Now, if the average person works 40 hours a week, I happen to probably work 70 to 80 hours a week, pretty consistently. I haven't worked 70 to 80 hours a week in some time. I would probably say I was working 50 to 60. I've dialed it up in the past 3-4 months, but I worked north of 80 hours a week in my 20s. And I'm capable of doing it because I know how to, I guess, run my energy that I don't burn out. And it's a balancing act, folks. So you can learn how to do it yourself if you feel that you get more out of life by doing it. Don't do it for the sake of doing it. Don't do it because somebody told you should do it. You do it because you love doing it. You found passions that allow you to put in that kind of energy and time, and that you get the rewards and benefits. Otherwise, it will become drudgery and monotonous. And I don't ever suggest that anybody do that. You got to make it really count for what you want to do. So, with that being said, when people are asking me, Bobby, what are you going to do? What's so and so going to do? I've already put out my, I've put out what my demands would be. If I were to do the work, I don't think they're unreasonable. And all the rewards, the most important thing to me is to honor God with any of the initial money that comes in through good works for all the good fortune that God has bestowed upon me. And I do believe in God first, and then we'll restore this nation. It's weird how God works, because maybe this is why God asked me to do this whole Bible thing to begin with, because I had no idea why I woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm just going to go through the Bible online for 365 days to keep myself on task. It makes me kind of smile and chuckle at the same time, because if you asked me if I would do such a thing, I don't know, 6 months ago or a year ago, I would have been like, why? Why would I do that? Like, what would possess me? You like that I use the word possess. What would drive me to do such a thing? And and for me, it's very clear what's driven me to do it. With regards to everything that I've been feeling, sensing from prayers, from how this nation feels, to all the people impacted by this, because our national identity is tied to our national vote. I've talked about it. I think our vote is like the constitutional glue that holds everything together, and that's why it's so critical that we do feel as though the system and the structure that's employed is in fact the right structure to make people feel that they have faith and trust in the system that has served this nation so well. So we're on to the last one here, which is Proverbs 3. The Lord curses the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the upright. The Lord mocks the mockers, but is gracious to the humble. The wise inherit honor, but the fools are put to shame. I want to believe that we all hope that happens sooner rather than later. That the Lord mocks the mockers, all the people in the mainstream media, all these people in big tech that have been mocking people that believe in God, when they're the ones that want to think that they're gods that we should be bowing to, kneeling to. And I do think that we have to fight. And I'm not talking physical force, folks. I don't ever believe in violence. I'm more along the line of like Gandhi in India and MLK, in that if we unite and put our energy behind just and righteous causes and inspire people to step up and act, we can truly change the world for the better and turn this thing around. You got to remember, there's one of them, every elected official in the United States for every 47,000 Americans. If we just get 0.1% of Americans, so 1 out of every 1,000 Americans, so 47 people out of 1,000, 47,000. So one out of every 1,000 to step up and get this problem solved across this nation. There's nothing we won't be able to accomplish. And that's the issue. It might take an army of 30,000, 40,000 dedicated people who are doing the work to show the rest of the 300 million people what needs to be done, and we come up with the right structure to do so. But it takes time, folks. I've been, some of the stuff I've been putting into place to prep all this. Obviously, I got to balance all this in my mind, my energy. Like, I got to balance it with my life. Today, I was, I went through my whole, I guess you can say I went through all the stuff that I experienced in 3 months, 2-3 months, about voter irregularities and such across Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. and gave my testimony, so to speak, that may or may not be used in a film. I don't know if it's going to be used. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I think that my message is one that I wanted to put on record. I'm not bashful about speaking the truth as I see it and as I know it. Um, I'm a little, I was a little apprehensive about it. I'll be, I'm not going to kid you. Having a family, I could feel the pressure that's going to come with it, and sense it. And um, there's going to be a lot of people that may love me. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to hate me. Um, and all I can tell you is that uh, I'll appreciate the love and ignore the hate, because at the end of the day, I do believe my faith will keep me grounded and keep me from becoming something that I don't ever want to be, which is an ungrateful person uh, who thinks that any type of views people might have about me that are positive, it's nice, but it's not. They're not. I don't view them as mine. I do view them as God's, and me doing God's plan. So when people feel that they're thankful for what I'm doing, uh, my better advice to them, and everybody who's listening now, is, be thankful, not to me directly. Be more thankful to God that God is using all of us to do His will and to make sure that our world is moving in the direction of heaven on earth, and that we all have to do our part. You can't, none of this should ever be about any one individual. Um, I do think that the place that each individual, each one of us matters the most, that cannot be replaced. And I've said this plenty of times in the past, I'll say it again, is with our own family and with our own children. We tend to be replaceable anywhere else in society, where, if we get fired from a job, or we lose a job because the company collapsed, or the company doesn't want to do that business anymore, for the most part, the business moves on, and it's fine. But, with regards to your family, if you really count and really matter there, that's the one spot that you truly are irreplaceable. Like you have the ability to create an infinite joy, or I guess in some respects you can create some pain if something happens in which they lose you. And so that's why it's super important that you put, obviously, God first, and then we need to have a strong nation. So that's why I say God first, then a nation. Then we have to have strong communities, strong families, and then we'll have strength ourselves. And that's kind of the order and how we come into this world. And then as we mature and grow up, that strength from an individual strong unit being built, flows up and builds a strong family, helps build a strong community, strong nation, and a stronger connection to God. So I do believe that I do believe that we kind of go in that type of virtuous cycle. It ebbs and flows, probably like the heartbeat. And so that's about it. So I thought today was going to be a little shorter because I'm pretty tired, but I still ended up talking for an hour anyway. So thank you for your patience, everybody. Do you read your email that say Bible? Yeah, I try to read all my email, but I will say I do get behind at times, and I try to play catch up. But I am hiring a couple of people to work with me in my professional career, as well as some stuff for personal, to keep up with some of this stuff, because I do feel bad that I don't have all the time, and I don't want to waste people's time. So sometimes I'm a little slower in responding until I'm ready to have the response that I think is warranted. So with that, God bless you. God bless everyone, your family and friends. May God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world. May peace be with you. And if you put God first, if you don't have peace and you put God first, I have no doubt that peace will find you. So I hope that you do that. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless. Thank you.